Well, hello there, darlings. It's me, Emily Milling, and this is the Ultimate Creative Podcast. I'm so excited that you're joining me today because I'm talking all about how I plan my content. This is a very logistical episode, and I'm going to give you tactics and tools and all of the things to help you plan your content more strategically, more efficiently, more effectively, and also we're starting with goals. Oh my gosh, if you've been listening, you already know how much I love goals and missions and all of that stuff because everything comes back down to this. Truly it does. You really can't get anywhere if you don't have a goal in mind. Because why on earth would you start a podcast or any sort of marketing strategy or tactic without a reason to do it? I used to get asked a lot in previous jobs, can you film this? Can you just record this? Can you just take pictures of all of this? And I'm like, sure, that's great. Well, what is it for? What are we doing with the content afterwards? Why are we filming it? Why are we spending all of this money on it if we aren't actually doing anything with it later? And 9 times out of 10, the response was, well, someone might want to watch it at some point. There was no strategy behind it. And I think it was probably more or less just to say that we were doing it versus anything else. And it was an incredibly wasteful use of my time, of company resources to just film things for the sake of filming things. Not a heck of a lot of return. And listen, I'm selling you content marketing and filming stuff. So therefore, you should take me seriously when I say you must have some sort of a strategy or goal or purpose for your content. Otherwise, it's not going to do you any favors, right? So right now, my goal is to relaunch Podcast Rocket for the first week of September. And if you're listening, you can get on the waitlist now. Just email me at emily@theultimatecreative.com. My goal is to have 100 people registered for this round. So all of my content is going to be extremely laser focused on podcasting, on content creation, on the people who have taken my course and have enjoyed it so far. And what the content's doing for me is helping me in my sales process, in my sales funnel. So, hey, guess what? You're in a sales funnel. It's crazy in here, right? Oh my gosh. And the cool thing about this type of sales funnel and content marketing is that there are no expectations on you to take any sort of action if you don't want to, if you don't need to. All of this content is here for you to benefit from, and I'm hoping that it's creating some value for you that you can use in your business and in your creative endeavors as well, or things that you could share with your own clients, right? So this is all about learning and about educating, but I want to give you a little sneak peek into how I'm building out my content and my whole sales process so that you can understand how you might apply it to your own stuff. So as you get started planning out your content, you want to make sure that you have a pretty good overview of what your annual activities are going to be. I know that we're in a bit of a weird time right now where no one knows what's happening from one week to the next, basically, or if anything's opening up or when the second wave is coming, blah, 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 whatever. I guess I'll state we're in the middle of a pandemic for anyone who's listening in 2044. I don't know. Sure, this podcast is going to be around until 2044. Why not? Anyway, so you want to think about all of the different activities that you might have going on throughout the year. Maybe you have a specific event that's coming up or that you do every fall, or maybe you have a specific launch that you're doing. So Podcast Rocket is going to launch again in September and then probably in the end of January. So those are two big key areas that I know I can center my content around, and the rest of it I can fill in with different things. I'm going to be launching a new website service relatively soon, so I'm going to be inserting more website related things and other content things in my strategy to support those goals as well. It's totally fine if you want to include some topics that aren't 100% relevant to the specific activities you have going on throughout the year. Like if you're only doing one launch a year, for example, one launch being I'm going to launch Podcast Rocket one time, if that was what I was going to do. I don't need to spend the entire year talking about podcasting. I can have other things related tangentially. I like to talk a lot about mindset things because I know that is a huge part of getting started with a podcast, is being comfortable enough to know that you are capable of having a podcast and being a subject matter expert, right? So a lot of that stuff is tangential to it, but don't veer too far off the course, because if you're creating your podcast specifically for your business, you want it to be content that is valuable to people who may become clients down the line. If you're offering one-to-one services, maybe you want to show some sort of a transformation with a client that you've had that is similar to what someone listening is going through, right? So you're still connecting to your audience in a meaningful way without banging them over the head with sales funnel tactics. This episode's gonna sound like that, but it's only because I'm describing it to you. I promise, darlings. I promise, darlings. I just want what's best for you. And with that said, also, because I want what's best for you, consider planning your content in advance. Because you don't want to be up the night before your podcast comes out, editing it. I know this from my own personal experience. Do as I say, not as I do, my lovely dear friends. Do as I say and not as I do. Batch record, batch film, batch blog write, everything, and then schedule it along with all of your social posts for a month. Because it's going to make your life a heck of a lot easier and you're not going to have to think about it so much. And it's going to be so much more strategic to do it this way versus just coming up with an idea every single week and be like, I think this is relevant, I think this is relevant, and typing as fast as you can because you want to be like putting stuff out there. It's not just enough to be consistent. You have to also bring a lot of value to the people that are tuning in every single week. So let's get into a couple of the tactical elements here. I always start with a spreadsheet because spreadsheets are just super fun and very easy to quickly organize. So you can do this annually, quarterly, monthly, weekly. Like if you really want to do things weekly, like if your show is very about topical events and you need it to be weekly, cool, awesome, fine. And I'm saying your show because I'm assuming it's about a podcast, but your blog, for example, or whatever it is, like a sketch comedy thing, whatever it is that you're putting out there, right? So I like to plan quarterly because it's a lot easier for me to wrap my head around this. And there's a really good book called The 12-Week Year that explains why it makes more sense for humans to understand 3 months versus an entire, like 12 months. It's just like, we can't conceive of 12 months from now. But we could pretty easily see, like, where are we right now? We're in the end of July-ish or mid-July. It's very easy to see into September from here, right? Because we know basically what's coming up next and we can see what is happening in the world, right? So think about potentially doing this practice every quarter or like leading up to the next quarter so that you have a very good overview of everything that's happening. So start with your spreadsheet here, try quarterly to start, and then adjust as needed. Across the top, you're going to want to list the date, the topic, the campaign, a promo, and any supplementary materials that you might have. And I'll go into what a supplementary thing might be in just a couple of minutes. And then you're going to want to pick a weekly release day for your podcast, your blog, your videos, whatever it is, and add those dates in. So every Tuesday, podcasts come out. Every Thursday, videos come out. Then you want to list any upcoming activities or events or important dates in your calendar, in this quarter, 3-month calendar. And then list any promos you need to write, record, or direct people to a specific call to action. And I've written a blog post for you on how to write a call to action, and I've linked to that in the show notes as well, just in case you need that. So this is your framework, right? This is the skeleton of what you're going to be using to punch in all of your different topics and your promos and your links and all of these different things. This is the very basic element of planning out your content, and it's going to give you a really high level overview. Don't make this very detailed. Just don't. Make it like super generic, like very high level, because you need to have at a moment's glance exactly what's coming up next so that you know how to prepare for it. So now that you've got your strategy and your framework built, your skeleton and everything, you can start getting a little bit more granular with your topics. And I have a free mini course called your first 52 podcast topics that you can use that will help you to generate all of these ideas, because that can be a little bit intimidating as well. I can tell you for sure you won't use all of those 52 topics that you're going to come up with in the course, but it's going to give you the framework and the ability to rapidly generate generate new ideas on the fly with a whole bunch of different prompts that I've set up for you as well. It is for podcasting, but it can be used for any other type of content. You can use this for your blogs, for your for your videos, whatever it is that you're putting together. Really what it is it's going to help you understand your audience a little bit better, get clear on your vision and your mission and your goals for the content that you're putting out there, and the audience as well. There's a little bit of an audience avatar exercise that will help you keep in mind who you're putting this out there for, right? Everything needs someone to want to watch it or to want to listen to it. I don't care if it's for business or otherwise. Your stuff is not for everybody, it's for specific people. And this is an extremely important exercise to do if you are coming up with your strategic content plan. So check it out. I mean, it's free. Why not? I am dropping a link in the show notes for that one as well. Something that is really helpful as well is to incorporate guests or interviews into your content. Not only is it really great to amplify your content to their audiences, but you can do the same for them, right? You can share your audiences, which means both of you get to grow at the same time, which is a really nice feeling, a nice mutual feeling. And another benefit is that if you want to be bringing a very specific type of information to your audience, and you need someone who's an expert in this area, like you understand the area very well, but you need someone who can get really granular with it, bring in guests that are subject matter experts. And this is going to be really helpful to add more value to the content that you're producing for your people. If possible, bring in guests that can support the strategy that you're working towards. So for example, with Podcast Rocket launching in September, I want to bring in some guests that have been through the program who can attest to how well it has worked for them to launch their podcasts. And I want to show the journey and the transformation. So for those of you who are listening, you'll be able to hear from where they started without a podcast, not really knowing where they were supposed to go with it, to the point where they're now podcast experts because they understand the whole space and they're very confident with it. Showing that transformation or case study is going to be very strong in your inbound marketing content strategy. Another type of interview that you could do would be to bring in a guest expert. So I'm going to have Nia Lee on. She spoke all about video content strategy, and she is so smart with this stuff. She understands this space so well, much better than I do. And she understands how to make it, repurpose all of the content and make it very effective for Instagram, for YouTube, for all of these different things, right? So it's good that I have her on to discuss this versus me. You know, she has the expertise. I understand the space and I can talk about it, but I am not the expert in it compared to podcasting, right? So you can see how this type of content or this type of interview will benefit you, the listener, the audience, but it doesn't necessarily just have to be me talking about it. And I can also ask really cool subject matter experts to bring in their own ideas for topics as well, because I may have not even thought of them. And that could be really beneficial for you, my dear listeners and viewers. Haha, you know I love you. Remember always to bring it back to this. You're creating value for your audience, for people who are thinking about getting ready to work with you or someone who provides your services. So if you are able to use your content marketing to build that trust and engagement with your audience now, in a few months from now, they're going to be the ones who are clicking check out on your website so that they can buy your services. Think about this as an ongoing trust-building loyalty exercise that you are using in order to cultivate a sense of community and a sense of genuine interest in the people that you want to work with. Now I want to talk about staying organized and consistent. You've done all of this really hard legwork. You've put all of your stuff together. You've got your spreadsheet, you've got your strategy, you've got your topics. You know that your content is going to do what it needs to do. It's going to be effective, it's going to be efficient. So you need to be really organized with it now. A tool that I really love to use is called StoryChief, and I use that to publish all of my content. I use that as a calendar as well. It's got a full content calendar in there. I can also use it to publish my social media posts as well, which is very handy, except I use Later for Instagram because it's got better analytics. But StoryChief has really great analytics for the blog posts that I put out, and it also has a really good capability for SEO. So I publish in StoryChief, and then it goes out to a whole bunch of different channels, but the primary one is theultimatecreative.com, and then all of the other channels will backlink to theultimatecreative.com, so I'm getting a higher boost in my rankings as a result. But that's not all StoryChief can do. The reason that I love putting the reason that I love putting my content into StoryChief is because I have it all laid out and I can see what campaigns it's assigned to, what type of content it is. It's got really great tagging features as well, and it helps me stay consistent and organized. So if I go into StoryChief at the beginning of a week or the beginning of a month and I look at it and I say, okay, I see I've planned all of these things out, I should probably get to recording them or writing them out. And it's also really easy to see if I've accidentally skipped a day, or if I'm like, oh, well, I'll think of something else to put in there later, or whatever it is. It's very easy for me to hold myself accountable because I can see it all at a glance. I can also see how far in advance I need to schedule any interviews that I want to do, which brings me to my next point, the production schedule. Always batch record, if possible, your episodes, videos, or batch write your blogs. Do it all at once, because then you'll be in a consistent headspace where you're just churning out all of this stuff. I like to do it on the weekend because there's no construction outside, and the construction is a bit of a nightmare and it's very annoying, but eventually I'll be able to do it during the week. The other element to this is that I don't have a lot of other demands and deadlines coming at me throughout the week, right? Like, we all have very busy work schedules and weeks and everything, so it might be easier to do, like, record 4 or 5 episodes if you possibly can on a weekend, and then you're done for the whole month, right? If you can do it with interviews, that's also super awesome. Doing them back to back, it can be really handy, and then you'll be able to put out really consistent, polished content. And let me tell you, it is a slippery slope if you decide one week that you're not putting something out there, and all of a sudden the week after you decide, I don't want to do it. It's going to be easier for you to stay consistent with your content and planning it all out if you do it in these little chunks. It's easier on your brain overall, is what I'm trying to say. You don't have to worry about it for the rest of the month. If you do it at the start of the month, you don't have to worry about it for the rest of the month. Finally, if you're serious about becoming an industry expert and you want people to take you seriously, and you know that you have really good stuff that you want to put out there, be consistent and be really good about holding yourself accountable. Find an accountability partner if you need to. I don't have an accountability partner because I feel like I would just let them down all the time because I'm a little bit all over the place, but I am accountable to myself because I have all of these other tools in place that help me stay organized. So to summarize this whole content planning strategy that you're gonna do now, because you're super cool and you wanna get ahead of the game, start with a strategy and goals, and then put a spreadsheet together to give you a high-level overview. Brainstorm a whole whack of topics, and you can use my free mini course, 52 podcast topics in 30 minutes. Add all of your topics to your spreadsheets, move it around, figure out if you have guests that you need to add in there, and then use a tool like StoryChief to really organize all of your content in the actual app so it all lives in one place. And then finally, make a production schedule and stick with it. Hold yourself accountable, because you are the one that's gonna make it happen, not somebody else. And if you want to be taken seriously and you want to be consistent, this is the way to do it. I hope that has helped you with planning out your content. If you have other ideas or other tools that you love using for your content strategy or your content planning, I would love to hear about them, because I'm all about more tools, more cool apps. You can send me an email at emily@theultimatecreative.com, or leave a review in whichever podcast app you use. I would love to hear from you. I would love to hear what you're doing to stay on top of your content and to hold yourself accountable. I'll link to all of the other tools that I mentioned in the show notes as well, and I hope you have a fantastic, marvelous day of awesomeness. Bye!